you played college sports, you played at a high level, you understand that there's a different tool set that exists in a college athlete. And that remains to this day. They're disciplined, they manage their time, they're organized, they're communicative, they handle pressure situations, they work well in a group setting. They're dynamic.
I'm Billy Ryan, and this is the No One Is Watching podcast, where we explore high-performing teams, individuals, and leaders, and dig deep to find out what makes them tick. This show highlights the DNA shared by elite performers, the process by which they leverage that talent, and ultimately helps you apply those lessons to your own life, business, or team.
Man, I'm jealous. This is always a great time of year where you are, right? You've got like the perfect weather in the valley. You got spring training kicking off. You got March Madness around the corner. I mean, I was always like one of my favorite times of the year in baseball, but especially in Arizona.
Yeah, it's good. We've got Innings Fest coming this weekend. Just a good time to be outdoors. It is fun. Kind of you go that January window of Barrett Jackson into the Open, into music festivals, spring training.
Yeah, I forgot about the Open and Barrett Jackson. That's right.
Yeah, a lot of our spring sports are underway, so it's not a better place to be than Arizona right now. That's for sure.
Yeah,
you guys do okay with those sports a couple weeks ago? The winter blast, did that come your way?
It did. Yeah, it did. I don't like to make too big a deal of it because you say it's cold by Florida standards, but yeah, it was. I mean, it was cold. It was cold. Yeah. I mean, not New England or Midwest cold, but cold enough for me.
Yeah.
It's not haboob. It's not a haboob, but
we're batting down the hatches. We're cloudy here today, so
yeah, yeah. So, dude, what was the shift like for you, Pac-12 to Big 12? I mean, every time I take a more than like a cursory look at college sports, there's so many different layers to where it is right now at the conference level, at the school level, at the athlete level. I mean, you're living that every day, still relatively new in a role. I mean, what give me the rundown. What's it been like for you your first couple of years in this?
It's been a blast. I mean, it's exciting because we're in change as a entity. College sports is changing in all facets. And so inexperience in the seat, I don't see it as a limiting factor because the best ability right now is adaptability and pliability and self-awareness and situational awareness. And so, I kind of got thrown in the deep end in a lot of respects as we're navigating a new job, a new opportunity, a new iteration of our department here at ASU amidst conference realignment, national reform starting to get underway, all these different factors at play. But with respect to the conference, I think initially it was disbelief. What do you mean the Pac-12 is going to go away? How could that even remotely be a possibility? And then that train started moving down the tracks and you recognize, hey, we don't want to be left behind in whatever this is going to look like. And so there was the realization of protecting what we know, protecting what was a great fit for us as an institutional level, but then that self-awareness of, hey, those days have officially ended, right? Schools announced that they're leaving. Membership was motivated by the institutional fit, wherever that was going to be. And there was kind of a division of priorities at that point. And I give President Crow a lot of credit for sensing this opportunity in the Big 12 is the right fit for us. And we were lucky to go in with 3 other familiar, similar quality, high quality institutions with Colorado, Utah, and Arizona. And so there was strength in the fact that you knew a little bit of the environment because you had some good teammates and colleagues that you respect and admire coming in with you. And then, frankly, looking at the upside of, all right, now we're a part of a very ambitious conference, motivated to build the brand, motivated to find extreme relevancy in what we're trying to do, and this national footprint, which has continued to be one of the best attributes of being in the Big 12, is now you have a nationwide footprint. You've got 90 million fans over the 16 marketplaces. You've got schools in Texas. You have a school in Florida, powerhouse distribution with Fox and ESPN, and that's been accented now with TNT and NBC Peacock and Paramount entering the conversation as well. And so I think where it started in disbelief and how could this ever happen, this was not on anybody's radar, into adaptability and readiness and really seizing the opportunity to say it's different than what we knew and love, but not better or worse. It's a different environment. So let's find the aspects of it that make it a good fit for us. And really, in our first year, taking that opportunity to reintroduce our brand. We have a new motto, we have a new philosophy, we have a new spirit of how we're operating the department, and really just be aggressive with the opportunity in front of us. And really proud a year and a half in that we've entered the Big 12 on solid footing. We had the most conference championships in year one. We had the most runner-up finishes in year one. High-profile wins in football, volleyball. Won the Commissioner's Cup, which was a pretty outstanding milestone for our team in athletics, navigating change unique to ASU, change unique to the macro environment, and finding our footing in the landscaping. And getting that award last summer was powerful for us because it measured athletic success. 10 of our programs finishing first or second in their conference in that particular year, academically excelling at the high end of the conference with GPA, GSR, APR, all these metrics, job placement. And then the kicker for us was just social engagement and kind of a community presence. And so Pac-12 did a great job of valuing those attributes. The Big 12 does as well. And so it's not just athletic performance. They value the academic side of what we're still here to do, developing young people through sport. And then the social responsibility that you have as a sports entity at any level of giving back to the community and being visible and active there. So again, adapted to the environment, took it on head on, and really proud of the early results of what we're starting to create.
Tell me more about that new spirit, new approach. What is it at ASU? What are you guys building?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, a lot of athletic departments have always been treated as auxiliary enterprise because you sell tickets and you sell partnerships and you fundraise and you have revenue coming in that you can pay for the full operational expense of a department. And we have 26 sports. We have, at a point before roster caps, we had 700 athletes from all over the world. And the carrying cost of a lot of that, a lot of these sports could be considered as cost centers and a lot of overhead. And so, when there was a 6-month period before I was announced as the AD and really getting this new model in order, and Dr. Crow and the interim AD, Jim Rund at the time, were working on harnessing this new model of integrating athletics within the university and using athletics as a tool to emotionally connect people to ASU through sport, not have it live on an island on the outside. And at some point recognize they are still students before they're athletes, and we're not willing to compromise the student athlete experience. We're going to sophisticate the business of college athletics. We're not going to professionalize it. We're not going to move into employment status. We're not going to move into something that this is still not designed to be, in our opinion. And so what that means is the university can resource the student part of the student athlete, no different than how they resource any other student throughout the ASU ecosystem. So picking up a lot of the overhead for scholarships, nutrition, insurance, maintenance, and operating, and allowing the university to cover the aspects of the student experience that would happen in any other aspect of the university setting, and allow us within athletics to focus on athletically related outcomes, drive revenues that affect athletically related upside and outcomes. And that really just simplifies our mission. That really simplifies the mission of how we're trying to run the business within our department of, we call it obsess over those who obsess over us, right? We have fans from all walks of life, really getting a deeper dive on who our fans are, what they value through their association to ASU, and then finding moments and memories and experiences for them to invest in, knowing that every dollar that they invest feeds the output of a young person. And I do still think there's altruism in college athletics. I think it's an easier connection point because you're not investing in ownership or franchise valuation. You're investing in human output. And we have 600 athletes now that are choosing us, and they're choosing ASU, and they're choosing this environment. We have this responsibility and this awesome opportunity to put them out into society as these incredible, productive adult superhumans. And you played college sports, you played at a high level, you understand that there's a different tool set that exists in a college athlete, and that remains to this day. They're disciplined, they manage their time, they're organized, they're communicative, they handle pressure situations, they work well in a group setting. They're dynamic, and now they've got a great education, and even using tools like NIL to build professional vocation or experience or resume or network, and launching them out as ready-made adults to go conquer conquer their dreams, their desires, enter society, and do all these things at a high level. And so that's really been the mindset shift of just simplify the mission, talent development organization. We're going to win. We're going to focus on championships. That's kind of the foregone conclusion. The North Star for us is talent development. That's our athletes, that's our coaches. And for the rest of us driving the business, it's finding the tools and the resources and the connection points that allow us to hire and retain elite coaches who are leading our young athletes every single day. And so drive revenues, athletic related outcomes, spirit of talent development is all in the philosophy of what we're trying to accomplish.
You're speaking my language now, man. I mean, it's getting good people and developing them. I mean, it's pretty powerful. It used to be in college athletics, it was sort of, I think they even had there was a commercial at one point, right, where it's X percentage. Most of us go pro in something other than sports, right? And there was the elite athletes at the power conference schools, the big time competition. Yeah, some of them, small percentage of them were going to go on and make a career and never have to do anything else in their life. They were just going to be a professional athlete. But an overwhelming majority, obviously, we're not going to do that. And I agree with everything you said about sort of the DNA of the athlete. And even it doesn't even have to be a college athlete, or even if you're a committed high school athlete, I think you have some of that same spirit within you. And I think it's a monumental competitive advantage. And I don't think people give it enough credit. Having worked inside of sports and now outside of sports, that you see the difference of people who have it and don't have it. Yep. But for those folks that didn't, being a professional athlete was never in the cards for them, right? They were going to play to the highest level and they maxed out in college or high school, whatever it would be. It kind of felt like this way to me, quite honestly. You take it to your ceiling and then that chapter closes and it's almost like you have to start over and reinvent yourself, right? And because you had that stuff inside you to go, sort of propel you on to whatever you're going to do professionally. Yep. But there wasn't like a direct stepping stone, linear path for you. And I think you touched on an interesting point there where like the NIL gets a ton of attention, rightly so. And there's a lot of detractors and a lot of sort of, downside to that, I think. But the upside, I mean, you do see these feel-good stories, and you do see these kids that have a good head on their shoulders that are using this money or using this opportunity to either set themselves up or to, give back to the community or what have you. And, I love to see that because it's particularly at schools that are, in the old model, making money off of these kids' backs, right? And really don't get much for it. I mean, yes, they get a college degree, but now it's for the NFL player. He can still use that value, that skill set, that utility in a direct way now. And right. He can start in college, right? Start building sort of his path forward, or at least, for sure, certainly doing more than I was doing when I was 19 years old, thinking about what am I going to do when I grow up.
Yeah. Well, how old were you when you first started playing baseball?
Yeah, 5, 4, exactly. 6, somewhere in there.
Imagine that environment, right? We have 600 athletes. They all started their love of the sport that they compete at a high level at 4, 5, 6 years old, and you and I didn't grow up in the club world the way that it exists now, right? And so you're making this investment into athletic endeavors at a young age, and it's a family sacrifice and a commitment to make sure that little boy or little girl has an opportunity to go earn a scholarship, right? That was the baseline goal of how do you get to college and earn a scholarship, and somebody else pays for your education as a result. Well, what have they given up on that journey? They've given up a lot of the flexibility or the experiences that other teenagers or adolescents would have, right? So you're playing your sport year round. You don't have a high school part-time job. You're not getting to college focusing on internships. You're not studying abroad. You're not able to invest in life after college the same way that maybe the traditional student would be. But you still have these high achievers. You still have this incredible skill set that we've talked about. And that's where we put a lot of our focus. And I get to meet with a lot of recruits. It's one of the best parts of the job is just being around these people where like, I know they're going to benefit from this environment. I know that we are going to make them better through the 3 or 4 years that they're with us at ASU. They're just focused on their sport. And oftentimes the parents are involved in the conversation, and it's great to say, hey, the sport's going to be the easiest thing you do here. That's what you know. That's what you've dedicated your craft to. You're going to be with these world-class coaches that surround us. That's the easiest part of your experience. Our responsibility is to challenge you to think beyond that moment where you hang up the cleats or you put the stick down or you're coming off the field for the last time. We want to prepare you for that readiness of, you already have a plan. You have a game plan on what you want to accomplish. You're using the network. We have 1 million alums that have attended ASU all over the globe. Plug into that network and be curious and be mindful of the surroundings and the environment that you're in, because to the point of the commercial, and ironically in that commercial, Dr. Chris Howard is one of the presidents that's featured in that NCAA commercial. He's now our EVP and Chief Operating Officer of the university. Played football at Air Force, got his MBA at Harvard, has traveled the world, studied at Oxford. Really fascinating background. And he's living proof of, hey, played college football at a very high level, had success, was a Campbell Award winner as a player, knew that he had a higher calling beyond just football and applied it that way. And now he's in our environment and is living proof of that. And so that readiness for life after sport becomes a really important part of what we focus on. And we champion that in our department. We're not willing to compromise that part of the ecosystem. Even as the world wants to take college sports down a different direction, we're trying to protect this concept of talent development and invest and enrich in that in so many ways. But you're right. It's just kind of opening the aperture for these athletes and their families as they come in of, we're going to make you better. And the sport might be the reason you got here. The sport at some point will come to an end. And it's our responsibility to open your eyes to the incredible opportunity. I mean, I don't have a statistic at ASU and I'm sitting here as the athletic director. Like I couldn't have contemplated that reality at 18, walking on this campus for the first time. And I didn't make a meaningful contribution athletically to this university whatsoever. Imagine when you've got All-Americans or conference players of the year or these incredible student athletes performing at a high level, how they're going to use this moment to catapult themselves into all the great things that will come next.
Yeah, there's I think an underappreciation for what a commitment it is, honestly, for these kids too. It is a completely different college experience, right? There's no spring break, right? There's no winter break. It's a full-time gig. It's a full-time job. It's a full-time course load, academically. And, I hearken, you just said something sort of about, a little bit of zigging when other people are zagging with respect to this NIL and the current landscape. And I imagine that I equate it a little bit to amateur talent acquisition in baseball, where you would go in two different ways, right? It's a little bit like the old days in Latin America, where it was just the wild, wild west, and there was a lot of stuff going on, and everybody's looking for an edge. And some people, were very good at exploiting little holes, and others try to play by the rules. There's if there are 30 teams, there's probably 30 different strategies to how they're going to require talent. And then you also look at it from the draft perspective. And I remember having a conversation with a kid we drafted relatively early, and the conversation was centered on his bonus, and the conversation got a little, I don't say contentious, but it was a pointed conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And at one point we just had to kind of use the word aperture, which I love. You had to zoom out a little bit for the kid and the family, because there's so much information now. It's all about measuring up. I'm ranked here and this kid is ranked below me, and I know what he got for a signing bonus, so I got to get more than that. And there's all of this stuff that's out there that can be good. It can be poison. It's a matter of how you use it. And we kind of had to make the point to him. I'm like, look, man, if we're going to treat you fairly, we're going to treat you right. If you are lock set on maximizing every nickel of this bonus because you think it's going to be the last big paycheck you get from us, you're looking at it the wrong way. Right. You have got, don't forsake, if you say no, what that means, right? And it's very similar to kind of what kids, the model is set up right now for them to be so short-term oriented, right? Yep. What can you pay me today, right? Like, how much can I maximize today and then tomorrow? And if I don't like it, I'm transferring next year, and I'm going in the portal, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And it's easy to flood the zone with that stuff. Just, it has leveled the playing fields in a lot of ways for the, the smaller profile schools to now, if they've got a wealthy alum that wants to dump a bunch of money, like we've seen recently, great. Yep. Okay. But I like the idea of kind of zooming out from that and just saying, we're going to play the long game here, right? We're going to develop good people. We're going to develop good athletes. We're not going to try to compete in the same way as everybody else, because it's too noisy. It's not to say you guys couldn't be successful doing it. It's just
Yeah.
What's your separator from a recruiting and from a development standpoint if you're just saying the same things as everybody else?
Yeah, I completely agree. And on all those points, particularly that college sports today is very resemblant of what Latin American baseball was like 10, 15 years ago. Unregulated, muddy, no real enforcement of the rules that do exist. A lot of handlers around the athlete brokering selfish outcomes and maybe not with the best interest of their client always in mind. Um, and so cutting through that noise is a huge part of what we're focused on right now. And I look at time that we've had in Major League Baseball is a very valuable skill set and perspective for what college sports is growing into. And when it's all said and done, I don't think the schools with the most money are the ones that will be the most successful. It's the utility of the dollars that you're investing. It's the output and the conviction in what you're investing in and the profile, what fits your system, because no two coaches are the same. No two football stadiums are the same. No two environments are the same. And so we've got to recruit and design rosters around our unique abilities in a place like the Valley. And that manufactures itself in the kind of coaching staff you have, the way that you can enrich the experience. I don't think there's been a better time in the history of college sports to be Power 4 athletics, Research One University in a metropolitan area, because everything that we're going to need moving forward lives because of ASU or adjacent to ASU. Population, fandom, decision makers, corporations, access and exposure, the quality of life that you get from living here. So we got to recruit to that. We got to understand our coaches have a unique way of player development and realizing human potential. We have unique advantages in our marketplace, and because of our institution, we've got to really develop a profile and conviction on how we welcome players into our system. And it's not going to be going for the most expensive 5-star talent that the agents hung a big number on. It's going to be identifying the fit that works in our system and being very rigid on how we make those decisions on who we recruit and who we welcome in. And Cam Scatterbo couldn't be the better example in my eyes of, New York Giants running back, had an incredible first half of the season before he got injured. But, he's the perfect example of, and I've always liked NorCal kids. There's always been just kind of a unique DNA and maybe kind of just perspective and intestinal fortitude that seems to come out of Northern California. But, he was maybe a 1-star out of high school, found his way to Sac State, had some success there, got on the radar, took a leap of faith of us coming to a program with a new coach off of a 3-9 season, was maybe more attracted to the chance to play at the Power 4 than he was ASU specifically, but made the most of that opportunity and really solidified himself as a value add, incredible teammate in that 3-9 season, took on the leadership responsibility, committed to his body, committed to understanding his program at a higher level, and then flips the script a year later, taking us to a Big 12 championship and the college football playoff. And forevermore is a legend every time he's in Tempe. Every time he's back around the university, this guy's going to walk on water because of the 2 years that he spent here. And so to the point you made about selfish decision-making or short-sighted decision-making or transactional decision-making, we've got to avoid that. And we've got to help these young people understand that, hey, we're not going to be for everybody, and that's okay. We're not trying to be a one-size-fits-all, go to the highest bidder. We're trying to show the unique advantages that an athlete and their family benefits from coming to this environment, plugging into this university community, living in this incredible community, taking advantage of the access to build relationships, and then go showcase yourself. And it is a meritocracy, but talent gets what talent deserves, and the market is proving that true. But in the long run, I think it's how wisely you invest, not how much you invest. And that's where there's so many parallels to a Major League Baseball front office and roster management and player development, and all those attributes have proven to be very helpful in our early days here.
Yeah, I think smart organizations separate themselves by doing exactly that, right? By being values oriented in their talent assessment and selection, and not, because look, you believe in who you are and what you can do and what you can offer, right? So it's easy to fall into the trap of like, no, we're good for everybody, right? Everyone would benefit from coming here. But in reality, people are motivated by different things. People fit different profiles. The things that you offer may not mean anything to some people, right? It may mean the world to others. So being selective and be like, yeah, we're not for everybody, and neither are you, right? That's the other thing that I think we struggle with. You see it at the youth level. There's so much exposure now, right? Like you touched on the showcase thing, when you and I were growing up, and the big, it was the very tail end of sort of my amateur career. It was just, and I grew up in New England, so it wasn't big, but like just starting, you kind of starting to hear whispers. And the sales pitch then was like, it's exposure, right? You're going to get more scouts that are going to see you, more colleges are going to see you, which is in New England is a bigger deal, right? You don't have as much opportunity to play. Now that word exposure is so saturated, and it's like, look, there's no, you don't need more exposure. Everybody's overexposed at this point. It's about what is right for you. I want to go be a D1 athlete. Okay, great. Why? Do you want to say you were a D1 athlete, or because you want to compete at the highest level possible, because you want to pursue a professional career? It's because why do you want to be a Division I athlete, or why do you want to be a pre-med major, or whatever it is, and I don't really know at that age. A lot of kids I don't think really know. They're just competitive and they want to achieve, and they're people pleasers. So there's a lot of things that kind of drive them in those directions. So just being like, as an institution, comfortable in your skin and saying, look, here's who we are. This isn't really even a sales pitch. This is just sort of like a manifesto. This is what we believe, and this is how we're going to go do it. If it's interesting, let's keep talking. If it's not, we wish you well. But we're not gonna sort of change that to form around you.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in fit, and it's a very subjective concept, but this has got to fit both ways, right? You've got to be a fit for what we're building and the system and the culture and the values that we're creating. Otherwise, it's not going to work. If we're putting on a sales hat to convince you to pick us, and this applies to recruits, this applies to coaches, this applies to leadership people throughout our organization. If the fit's not there, it's not set up for success. And I got really good advice before I got the job. Kirby Hocutt at Texas Tech has become a great friend and somebody that's just, very seasoned in the chair. And he offered to me, he's like, hey, there's a lot of pressure to make a decision in a job like this. Like it's high visible. There's a lot of exposure. There's a lot of attention into everything you do. You're going to get measured on making the right decision, not the quick decision. And that's been very helpful to just not irresponsibly slow play any situation, but collect the most amount of information and be able to make the most informed decision on the topic at hand. And particularly as it relates to people, being very discerning on who we welcome in and why. And are they a fit, and are we value adding for what their goals and objectives are out of the experience, whether it's 4 years as an athlete, whether it's a decade-long run as a successful coach, whether it's somebody making a decision on where they want to go in their career. I've got a lot of Pat Murphy DNA and how I operate, because I was just lucky to spend so much time with him. But he always said something that stuck with me as well. Of it's not where you're going, it's who you're bringing.
Yeah.
And at some point, like, the enrichment that you get from your day to day is more influenced by the people you do it with, and having great teammates and being part of a value add environment and being part of something bigger than yourself, frankly, that I think is a powerful concept. I'll bring it back to fit. And again, like, I don't want us to be for everybody. I want us to be for the right people that understand what we're all about. They add value to the system, and we're feeding them so much enrichment back through that association.
Well, we live today where there's, the Monday morning quarterbacking and who won the trade deadline, who had the best draft class, who got the most 5-star recruits, right? And I always sitting in draft rooms is always my favorite time of year. I would look at it from the other end, where we would have a guy buried on our board, and he'd go off in the second round, and it would be a team that you have a lot of respect for, that does it the right way, and you're like, uh-oh, what did we miss? Yep. He wasn't even in the conversation for us, and he just went good. And so then you're locked in on that kid for the next 4 years, right? And you're watching that path. Right. You don't want to win the news cycle, right? You want to win the decision, to your point. And those organizations, whether it's college or professional, they just sit back and they almost laugh at it. They're like, you don't want to win. Don't give me the headlines, right? Because I know more than you do. I know what we're hunting for, what we're building, and you don't. You couldn't possibly. So we're going to find. I mean, the NFL is a great example, because they're really successful organizations. The best franchises over the last 20 years, all of them are really, really good at acquiring and developing people for their system. That's one thing I was always envious of, is you could build a system, and you could have profiles of players that have to fit that system. And it's physical, and it's mental, and it's emotional, and it can get really dialed in. We didn't have that luxury in baseball, right? You kind of had to take the best player available. But at the same time, it's a system, right? If you're no good at developing breaking ball stuff, drafting the kids that have the big 12-6 overhand breaking ball, right? Like you got to know thyself.
Sure.
And it sounds like you guys are really locking in on that across the entire department.
Yeah, and that's a big part of our philosophy because in many ways, I mentioned earlier, sophisticating how we run the business, not professionalizing it, but sophisticating it and just elevating what we're doing. And we're still in catch up mode. So we're trying to catch up to where we've been and where we need to be, but we're also starting to accelerate in many ways as well. And both things are true. And so like that's the dynamic of, we're kind of design build in many ways, but it's going to start with people, it's going to end with people, and we'll fill in the stuff in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. You touched a little bit on decision making. What are some of the hard decisions you've had to make early in your tenure?
A lot of it was a unique perspective. I was here for 3.5 years before I got promoted. And so you go from being a colleague and a coworker to a boss. And that's just an interesting cultural dynamic in any organizational dynamic. And there's kind of 3 categories. There's people that adapt with you and understand that, hey, there's an opportunity that's created for everybody in the motion. There's some fence sitters that are kind of sitting back waiting to see like how this plays out or what's really going to be different and can I survive doing it the way I've wanted to. And then there's some people that just aren't cut out for where we're going, and that typically self-corrects. But I think in the first year, really tried to give, to the extent we could, the benefit of the doubt to the people that have been here, and really evaluate from a different lens of who's going to be a part of what we're building and where we're going, and making sure that we got that part right. There were some quick early changes that we needed to make and get a few key positions in order to get us off to really strong footing out the gate. But then from there, it was, to the extent we can navigate a cycle and really be more informed on where we're going, because again, it was new model, new leadership, new conference, new macro environment around NCAA and how college sports is going to look moving forward. And so maybe a little bit more I would have preferred to do sooner, but you don't know that when you're in it. And again, trying to make the best possible decision based on the information you have on the day has probably been the big part of the awareness. And then understanding of, you mentioned in your email last weekend, like it's lonely in these seats oftentimes, and you're looking for the sounding board and you're looking for sage judgment or wisdom to help guide decisions along the way. At some point you realize like, hey, the buck stops here and I've got to pony up and make the decision and find the conviction or find the justification or find the purpose behind what we're doing. And it comes often. And President Crow said something that's proven to be very true as I was taking the job. He's like, hey, it's relentless. And you're going to have to calibrate to the relentless dynamic of what it is. And it comes in all forms. But that's been helpful to go back to, knowing that, hey, there's our plan and there's the reality of what we're trying to accomplish. There's also the reality that we're dealing with young people in a very ever-changing environment. And so again, back to adaptability, pliability, agility, all these attributes that become really important. So, first year was very interesting and very challenging in a lot of ways, but I do take great pride that we found our way through a lot of the clutter and through a lot of the newness. And I think we got off to a really strong foundation that we're very motivated to build and grow from as quickly as we can.
Dude, as you're sitting here talking, I'm thinking it's kind of like becoming a parent for the first time. You can read all the books you want, like you're not going to be prepared, so in an ironic way, you not having sat in that chair before, coming in at a time when you did, where there was so much in flux, it really leveled the playing field for you, because the institutional advantages that some of your counterparts had, it was sort of wiped away, to some extent, because there's so much newness out there.
Yeah, and I knew that going in, which was helpful, and maybe that's just self-awareness that has proven to be helpful, but. I wasn't the maybe the no-brainer candidate as the job was open, and it was, they need a sitting AD, they need somebody with experience, and who is this guy who's been more behind the scenes, and try to explain out the gate of like, hey, my entire career has led me to this moment, and nobody is going to love or steward ASU athletics more than I'm prepared to do it, because I've come through it, my wife has come through it, I've been a part of this environment, I know the marketplace, my relationships are all driven through my time and connections to ASU, and I guess gaining the confidence in that perspective as well of like, I am the things that I'm projecting and telling other people. My career has led me to this moment, and prepared me in ways that I couldn't even imagine as I was going through it. But in the roles I had, on our coaching staff here within the baseball program, and then going to the Diamondbacks, where I got to touch all aspects of the organization, that was the best preparation for the job I'm in now, because you get a deep understanding of the institution. You understand how the other side of it works when you graduate and you enter the workforce that way. And then in Major League Baseball, the polish, the attention to detail, the culture, the way that we're a community advocate and shoulder that responsibility as an organization, bringing those attributes into this environment. And even having the 3 years when I first came back after COVID to really just kind of get more familiar with the university and what it's progressed into, and the environment of college sports. And so, you had a message you wanted to convey, and then you kind of realize of like, I am what I'm conveying in the message, and I am ready for this, and I am the fit, and here are the reasons why. And so then it turned into executing the game plan, so to speak.
Hey, real quick, if you're getting value from the show, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, and if you're so inclined, go ahead and leave a 5-star review while you're at it. It helps more people like you find this podcast, and honestly, that simple form of support, it makes a difference. All right, back to the conversation. Yeah, so it's always a dynamic is always interesting when you go from colleague or friend to boss, and there's a lot of people, similar to my point earlier about wanting to go D1 or wanting to do whatever. A lot of people think they want to be a leader and aspire to do that. And then it's really hard. It's even as like the number 2, you can throttle down. There's times where you're just like, all right, I've taken it to the 5-yard line, and now it's my boss's, job. He's got to make the decision. Right. But when you're the guy, it's always on you. And you talked about, you spent, most of your career in baseball, where it is, from a time perspective, at least, the most grueling schedule, because there's so many games. But there is, albeit a small one, there is an off season, and we touched on it a little bit earlier that there's no off season in college athletics, and it's just go and it's go and it's go. There's a lot to balance that had to be hard to adjust to. I know you were there for a couple of years, but you probably, I'm assuming, didn't have to have your eye on every single ball in your previous role, but you do now.
Yeah. There's no doubt that, that's like we talked about earlier, there's no replacement for lived experience. And even I would consider a lot of my experience part of this role is more behind the scenes, and working for 2 very big personalities, and Pat Murphy and Derek Hall. And so much of my style is influenced by both these guys, because you saw what they did so well and how they projected optimism and confidence and how they seemed comfortable in any environment. And then there's also the benefit that I think we all have of knowing them so well and respecting their style and leadership, but then understanding that like some things didn't land maybe how they intended to. And so learning from that observation or that firsthand experience of, I understand what they were trying to affect or accomplish, but I also know how it landed and felt in that moment, good or bad. And, at some point, we're all a product of our experiences. You're all a product of the places you've worked, the people that you worked with and for. And that does influence, I think, each of our individual leadership styles. And then there's the calibration of, this is going to be different, and it's going to be relentless, and it's going to be a whole new set of pressure and challenges and expectations. And a lot of it was recognizing that you're not doing this alone. And I give my wife, Allison, a ton of credit. And even in the 6-month interim process before I was able to earn the job, there were nights where you get home, you're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know that this is going to be the fit. I'm starting to get a look at what this could be like. Our son was a couple years old at the time. We just had our daughter. And so you're acclimating to, being a parent, having a full household, having the reality of it does come at a tremendous sacrifice, a tremendous balance. There's moments you're going to miss. We all sign up for that when you work in sports, but then it's different when you're a parent, and it's different when you're maybe ascending into a very desirable leadership role and something that you work hard to do. But, I'm very grateful, and I'm very maybe introspective of, I'm lucky because my wife gets it, and she gets the environment. She worked in Major League Baseball, so she has that experience. She played college sports, so she understands the purpose of the work and ultimately the mission of what we're trying to accomplish, because she was the benefactor of other people making that same sacrifice and balance. And her point was like, this is our school. Like, we're going to figure this out. We're going to find a way to make it work. We'll navigate the adjustment. We'll adapt to this new environment. But what an opportunity. What an opportunity for you professionally. What an opportunity for our family to affect and hopefully elevate something that we deeply, deeply care about. And what a cool way for our kids to grow up and for us to be having some form of success in our careers and modeling that behavior to two young kids looking up saying like, hey, my mom and dad can figure it out, and they can be present as parents, and they're going to give us the best effort. And as a parent, I think a lot about the sacrifices that my parents made for me and my brother to have opportunities that they didn't have as a kid. And that's ultimately, when you simplify it, I think what we're all trying to do is give our kids more enrichment and more diversity and experiences as they grow up to really unlock their wildest curiosities when they get to adulthood. And so, complicated day to day, but really simple in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. And I get to represent something that I deeply, intrinsically care about and have tremendous love and admiration for. And I want other people to have a version of the experience that I was able to benefit from and my family's been able to benefit from. And while at the same time providing for my family and creating some really cool, unique experiences for them to touch and plug in and be present in the job and find the moments that we can enjoy as a family and know that others are hopefully benefiting from the hard work that we're putting into this.
Yeah, the intrinsic motivation makes it easier, right? And the emotional attachment you have to the institution and the opportunity. But I imagine it still takes a lot of discipline, because there is so much to manage. And I think delegation is something that high performers typically have a lot of trouble with. They've been high performers because they've been able to, usually it's because they've been able to execute at a high level. Eventually that evolves into maybe leading at a high level, managing at a high level, strategizing at a high level. There's a lot of different sort of strains of that. But letting go, it gets back to good people, right? If you have the team around you and you're developing that team, and everybody understands sort of directionally where we're headed, it becomes a little bit easier, but still sometimes you're like, man, just give me the damn ball. I gotta do this myself.
Yeah.
But that can consume you if you don't, you have to check yourself sometimes with it, right? To say, no, like I can probably get it done quicker and better because I've done this 100 times, but I need to let this person do it now because they need to develop, and it's going to make my life and the institution's life a heck of a lot easier, 18 months from now if they can.
Well, you're spot on. And I think that's an important attribute in any level of leadership, particularly at a place that's designed around teaching and learning. And, as I guess a teacher or a coach, in the way that I can be in this role of empowering other people to gain that experience and create an environment where, there's things that I'm maybe seasoned at or experienced at, but I'm now the person that can only be the person in the job that I'm in. And so if my qualifications and my experiences led me to this role, I need to protect my time and energy to uniquely be the person that can kind of help drive the ship, so to speak. And so that really takes the handoffs and the delegation and the coaching and the teaching up to let other people gain that experience and find their unique contributions, and admittedly a work in progress. And I think that's probably something that any first-time leader is adapting to as you get into it, because it's like, hey, I'm good at this part of the puzzle and I want to continue to be good at part of the puzzle. But you realize that the environment needs more out of me. The environment needs more bigger picture planning and strategy, connecting the dots, and also teaching and coaching and leading and developing other people to gain that experience or that subject matter expertise where they become the master of that part of the puzzle. And I also recognize that that's probably work that's never done. That's always going to be a progression and a work in progress and an area to really focus on. And again, going back to fit and the people and the culture and the environment that you're building, you got to have confidence in the people and create an environment where, Derek said something to us that I come back to pretty often of like, it's okay to make mistakes. The goal is to not make the same mistake twice. The goal is to not make the same mistake after you've had the lesson learned or the takeaway on if it didn't work the way that the plan was drawn up, or if the outcome wasn't the way that you intended it to. Use that lived experience, use that set of data, use that takeaway to be better the next time that same situation presents itself. And so a big part of delegating, I'm finding, is helping people understand of like, perfection is not always the goal. At some point, progress is more effective than perfection. but let's gain the experience and be better for that experience as we move forward. Because you're right. I mean, I'm trying to get every ounce of margin out of the 24 hours in the day, and that's a finite reality that there's only going to be 24 hours in a day, and protecting time to be present or present as a husband, as a father, recharging to be focused when the challenges of the job present themselves, teaching and leading and delegating, setting the vision and putting things in motion. That utility of every minute in the day is important, and there's no way to do it alone. There's absolutely no way to do it alone. So leading, delegating, handing it off, coaching people up, giving them the opportunity to gain that experience, bringing it back to talent development. I want that for our team. I want that for our leaders, for our emerging stars, to get that experience where they feel like I'm better because of the time I spent at ASU. And maybe it was a chapter in their book, maybe it was a significant part of their career, but we definitely want to create the kind of environment where people feel like I got better while I was there. I got better being around these people. I got better for the experience I was able to learn and gain as a result.
Yeah, I think it's a common misperception, I think, to when you talk about leadership development, people tend to focus on the top, like the pointy edge of the pyramid. You know what I mean? In reality, better decisions, better leaders lead to better outcomes. And better leaders can happen anywhere in the org chart. You know what I mean? It's not about the CEO getting the kudos for being this inspirational, transformational leader, and everybody, underneath him isn't worth their salt, right? I mean, ultimately, every coach that you have, every administrator you have, everybody in the support staff, the more empowered they are, the more well-rounded and confident they are in their decision-making, their ability to go execute. Not only does it make your life easier because you don't have to shoulder everything, but it makes the organization so much stronger, sure. and that's something that I think people feel. I think that I've always really responded to, and particularly looking back on it now, appreciated mentors and bosses that I've had that, whether I knew it in real time or not, were pouring into me and were giving me opportunities to hang myself or succeed, right? But some people don't even give you that opportunity, and that's a heck of a lot more gratifying to me, and I grew a lot from that, more so than the person that may be the best in the world at what they do, but ultimately they're going to let me run the ball until it gets to their end zone. They're going to take it away from me because they're not going to risk not scoring here. And I understand it but I think it's a zero-sum game to some degree. I mean, you're stagnating yourself by design if you're doing that. And so as you're growing, in role that you're in, growing organizations, growing an institution, I want to get out. That's the next question I'm going to ask you. But every hire that you make, whether it's a coach or administrator, impacts the ripple effect of that hire is really impressive. Because if you make the right hire, that person is successful. That person has a long tenure there. Think about the hundreds, if not thousands, of students and people affiliated with the university that person is going to have an impact on. So who's the first, we'll just keep it coaching. Who's the first coaching hire you got to make?
Yeah, first weekend on the job, got to offer our women's tennis job. We had a legend, Sheila McInerney, who'd been here for 35 plus years, legend in the sport, national champion as a player, one of the more decorated coaches in America. Just decided it was time to hang it up, ready for the next chapter. And so we had a job open, week zero, so to speak, on the job. And we had some groundwork in place and some people here that did a tremendous job identifying some talent. But my name is on this hire and I want to get off to a strong start. And we identified a young woman named Jamia Jackson, who was the head coach at Princeton, and offered her the job. She accepted it. She's in year 2, having a tremendous run out the gate. And what excited me about her, grew up in Atlanta, so always good to get fellow Southerners out west. So I appreciate that about her. But her lived experience is what you get excited about finding in a coach, because she's done everything in the sport that her athletes are going to pursue and dream of accomplishing. And her pathway was so unique because she was an IMG Academy, a stud tennis player on the way up, had a chance to go to the IMG Academy, which is well decorated, certainly in the sport of tennis. And went pro at 17. And so she's away from home, competing in the French Open, Wimbledon, US Open, the world's greatest events. And then in her early 20s has an injury, playing career slowing down, can't compete at the world-class level. What do I do? This was not part of the plan. I was supposed to play till I was 40. Time to pivot. Hey, I want to give back to the sport that's given me so much. I'm going to get involved in coaching. And so goes to Oklahoma State as an assistant, accomplishes her degree as an assistant coach. And that's sometimes a hard fit to find, of getting a Division I coaching job while you're not a college graduate. And so she did both at a high level. That led her to a chance to go coach the U.S. Tennis Association. Did that for a decorated run, had Coco, had some others there under her watch, and then used that to get to Princeton, where she won the Ivy League in back-to-back years, and was ready for the jump, was ready for a Power Four opportunity, and it came at the right time. But, that was a situation where there was not a lot of time available. We had a job open. You're in the recruiting season. The New Year's around the corner. We haven't had an opening in the sport in almost 4 decades. And so, baptism by fire in many ways, but helpful experience to go through, and great result out the gate with Jamea.
Yeah. Congrats on the new gig. Go replace a institutional legend.
Yeah.
Right.
And the best case for her, because Sheila's still been around. I actually saw her last night at a fundraising event, and that's you've been a part of a lot of coaching adjustments, and that's not always normal, where you're going to get the benefit of a relationship with your predecessor, and certainly a predecessor that wants to be an engaged partner but not overstep. And Sheila's been an incredible teammate and has opened up her network, has opened up her lived experience, and I think she enjoys the association with the program and not maybe the day-to-day grind of leading it, but has been an incredible value add to this experience for Jamea coming in.
That's great. It's the best of both worlds. What's a program or a sport at ASU that you wish got more attention, just because it's genuinely exciting and you just like what's happening there?
There's 2 that I think about often with this question. One is our swim and dive program. We've got a number of Olympians in the pool right now, young athletes that competed in Paris a couple years ago, and a number that'll get a chance in LA in 2028. And what's really cool about the story is we've got a young head coach, Herbie Bain, who's in his second year as a head coach, swam in our program, was a part of it when swimming was briefly dropped from the university, and they're selling t-shirts to fundraise and rubbing nickels together to bring the program back. And they did it. And then graduated, had a chance to stay on as an assistant coach, and has kind of worked his way up. Had a chance to coach under Bob Bowman, who's a legend in the sport, and was our head coach a few years ago when we won the national championship. He's now at Texas. And, Bob made the decision to move on, and to his credit said, hey, the replacement's in the department right now, and Herbie's going to get a lot of looks elsewhere. He's a commodity in the sport. If you move quickly, he could be the guy that takes the program over. And so we did that within the same day. And Herbie took over the program and really had a strong message that afternoon in front of the athletes that were trying to process. Like, we won a national championship on Saturday. Our coach leaves on Monday. World's upside down in a 36-hour window. And he walked in the room and just calmed the waters immediately. And, when Coach Bowman walked out the door after sharing the news that he was leaving, and we shared that Herbie was going to be the new coach, being in the room to watch the player reaction just with pure joy and enthusiasm and excitement was one of the coolest things to be a part of. And then his first year as a head coach, wins the Big 12 championship in both men's and women's. Men's a back-to-back run, women's the first conference championship in program history. And, in year 2 is in a strong position to defend both men's and women's. Number 2 in the nation on the men's. I think we're 18th in women right now. And swim and dive is a sport that certainly pops up around the Olympic cycles, but it's really a sport that's got a rabid following. There's a lot more media exposure on it. We've got a number of our program alums that are very relevant in the social media world and content creation on the sport. And so, that's a sport that continues to be a rocket ship at ASU, just given the Olympic connection, which is really important for a global university like ours. And we've got athletes from 44 countries throughout our athletic cohort. And, Leon Marchand was the darling of the Paris Olympics, who's also a Sun Devil, and just brought incredible exposure to the program. And we've been able to really realize that momentum and put it to good use. So that's one. The other one is volleyball. Back-to-back Big 12 champs under a first-time head coach, JJ Van Niel, who has a fascinating background. Went to USC, played club hockey, got in the hedge fund world, was in finance for the early part of his career, and just his words, not mine, but said it was kind of a soul crushing experience. And he just wasn't in the lifestyle of going cross country from LA to New York every week and dealing with the banking world. And is a tremendous athlete, was a tremendous recreational athlete, and just really wanted to get back into coaching. And so got involved in club volleyball. That led to a job at UC San Diego, I believe. That led him to Utah as an assistant, gets to USC as an associate head coach, and then has a chance to come to ASU as the head coach. And one of the more prepared individuals I've ever been around. And he would tell you his background in business and high pressure finance is what has allowed him to really value preparation that's required, the attention to detail as a coach, et cetera, and applying his own lived experience in a very unconventional way to leading and teaching and coaching at a very high level. And it's probably our best coach of using data analytics, but feel to really marry a high performing roster, but is also somebody that sought out every unique advantage that lives at ASU. If I've got student analysts that I can plug into, I've got somebody I can develop patents on wearables that help my program. I've got access to thought leaders in a space that's going to benefit my program on mental preparation or visualization, has put all these things in motion. And he might have less than 15 losses in 3 seasons, 2 conference championships, 2 Sweet 16. He's only been a coach of the year in his 3 years as a head coach. He's got 1 Pac-12 and 2 Big 12 coach of the year nods under him, and is leading a sport that I think over the next decade is a rocket ship in America, women's volleyball. I mean, it's made for TV. The major networks are seeing the value of that. The national championships are on ABC. It's 2 hours. There's a point scored in every play. It's super dynamic. It's very entertaining. It's better than the male version of the sport, in my opinion, and that's not something that you can always say. So I think volleyball is one that we're seeing a lot of upside. But then, I mean, what we're doing in women's basketball right now is very exciting. We've got football momentum. We've got baseball and softball getting back into the national conversation, top 25 programs. So we have 10 in the top 25. We've got 4 in the top 10. We've got tremendous leaders throughout all of our sports, but lots of good going on here at the Sun Devil Land.
Yeah, man, no doubt. I love I've actually experienced this myself. People that get exposed outside of sports. Sports is a very insular industry. It almost doesn't matter what sport it is, what your background is. If you spent a life in it or a career in it, your worldview is pretty limited, whether you realize it or not, because it's so all consuming. And so I was half cognizant of that when I was in baseball, and I always tried to tap into other resources. I would hire people from outside industries to come in because I valued that diversity of thought and perspective. But when I got out, you realize how much is out there, right? And so I see real value in that enterprising mentality and mindset when it comes to coaching, and realizing that, like, yeah, you need to be the tactician and the expert in certain areas, but there's a lot of other things that you can use to your advantage, and I think some of us fall victim to just, head down, block the guy in front of you. And if I outwork the other guys, I'll be okay.
Right.
Whereas someone who's come from outside industry has just some freshness and some newness to those perspectives, and maybe, some creative problem solving that those of us that spent a lifetime in a sport or an industry may just be a little bit blind to.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, that's the fun part of this environment, is where you can take people from all walks of life and they all make a unique contribution into the mission of what we're here to do. And there is so many similarities between the business world and the sporting world, and access to information, the way that you apply information, the way that you problem solve, the way that you lead. And yeah, we can't afford to be myopic in terms of just a one size fits all mentality. I think we've got to take inputs from all the ways that we can. And I think that's particularly interesting in a university setting where, we're tapped into our journalism school, we're tapped into our engineering college, we're tapped into College of Health Solutions, and just thought leaders on very specific subject matters that we can use their reach and their insights and their perspective to build where we're going. And that's just fun to be a part of. That's just a fun environment where, like, I'm naturally curious. I like problem solving, but maybe old enough or maturing enough to recognize that like I'm not going to have all the answers. We need people around us that do have the answers that we're seeking, and really understand where to point the periscope.
All right, so as a kid that went to ASU, and now you're sitting in the chair with the whole shift in landscape, better on the whole, better group of mascots, Pac-12 or Big 12?
Mascots.
Yeah.
Well,
mascots.
I would say the Pac-12 only because there's a great children's book that our kids loved. It's called Protectors of the A, and it was our A Mountain and Sparky protecting the A from the Pac-12 mascots. And so we do need to create a Big 12 version of it, because I think I'm still less familiar with maybe some of the backstories on these mascots.
Yeah.
To this day,
Sparky's such a good mascot, man. It's such a great
Sparky's
mascot.
the best. And, our friends down south, we call the Stinky Cats in our household. And obviously protecting the A from the Stinky Cats is a goal in the Pac-12 or the Big 12. So we're gonna stay consistent there. But I do get the question a lot on the conferences and how they're different, and it's not better or worse. It's very different. The Pac-12 had great cities to go to and great universities to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
The Big 12 has incredible college towns and fan bases, and there's a passion in the Big 12 that's been really fun to lean into, and it's helped our fans. It's helped our programs see kind of fandom at a new level and really bring influences back from a game day or an in-game show or some of the fan traditions that we can evolve here at ASU as well. But I'm still going to give the Pac-12, the original Pac-12, the mascot nod with a TBA on where the Big 12 is going there. We just
fair enough, man. Fair enough. Just stay away from the Stinky Cats.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, buddy. Appreciate the time. This was a ton of fun. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the No One Is Watching podcast. If you'd like to support the show, hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and share it with your friends. If you're interested in similar content focused on leadership, culture, and high performance, check out nooneiswatching.com. Your time is valuable, so I appreciate you spending some of it with me today. See you next time.